Welcome back to the Memory Jogger podcast. This is Jason alongside Wyatt.
Yeah, we're finally together after only a year or so. I think
Got
the
to
last time we were together was our memory jogger uh, cruising to 80s, or I'm sorry, cruising to 40,
that's
road trip
right.
to
Yes,
40.
road trip to 40 little movie we put together. But yeah, we are in the same studio. And if you listen to the show, normally you would be hearing some music about now. And decided to do the, I guess, reverent thing and do a cold open for this show because, of course, our theme is Running Down a Dream from Tom Petty. And he just passed away here, I guess, about 2 weeks
2 weeks ago
ago.
now, yeah.
But wanted just to pay a small tribute to him. I mean, that song is very meaningful to me. Loved the music video growing up and had a chance to revisit that with my little girl who was almost 4. And we watched it about 6 times in a row, the little black and white cartoon
Yep.
and all that. So, yeah, I mean, that song was really one of my favorites of his. And just thinking about the show, and we're essentially running down our childhood dreams and memories. And I thought that was just a perfect fit to intro and outro our podcast for Memory Jogger. So we just wanted to, like I said, pay a small tribute to him, thank him for his music, which I very much enjoyed,
Same here.
and just, condolences and prayers out to his family and fans at this time because it was somewhat unexpected. He had just come off actually touring this summer. I think it was I want to say it was the 40th anniversary of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers band
Right.
this year. So
Excuse me.
anyway, thank you, Tom, for your music, and we will continue to play his track during the show. But we do have we're back in the. Oh, okay. We are back in the saddle again after a little delay.
Right. So if you hear sounds, Jason is still experiencing this. My sound booth, as you can see, is a little tiny closet in the basement, kind of like Wayne's World, just not without the lounge chairs and stuff.
That's what you need in here. You need a couch.
I do. I don't know how I'd fit it in this little 2x2 room, but
After a little delay and job change for me and just a little I guess a little breather needed from podcasting and even website stuff in general for a while. Hopefully this will get us recharged and back in the groove of releasing shows on a regular basis.
right.
And this one's going to be fun. We're going to do our early jobs. We had discussed that in that last episode, and this is gonna be real fun. We had actually our first phone-in guest.
Yeah, we did, and we'll cut and splice it. Unfortunately, the guest of the hour, and we'll divulge it in a minute. But he was very gracious to come on board, and
One of our old bosses, actually.
yeah, through some trickery, and I'm going to get a lot of Facebook comments, but I'm still subjected to this. But hey, I'm cheap. I won't deny. But yeah, it worked great. We were actually really impressed. He was impressed once I figured out which wire to plug.
I was very impressed that you pulled that off,
Right.
and was able to play a few sound effects and that I know we could hear. I'm not sure if he could hear them or not, but just to get him tied in and get us both set up, you're the mix master, mix master WB.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're got a fun show. We normally
Do an
open up.
icebreaker.
Yeah, we'll do an icebreaker, and we're going to kind of point people to a podcast which will hopefully be released about the same time as this one over on the basically the same feed.
Right.
But it's going to be a wrap up of our trip to RetroCon because that's kind of fresh on our minds, and we'll want people to just get the full experience that we do being together, usually once a year, hanging out. And usually the last 2 out of the last 3 years, it's been going to RetroCon and absorbing everything that is nostalgia involved with that.
Right, and we're going to plug that. That'll be our icebreaker right now. We're going to forego the icebreakers for at least a short time. We're going to try to refire up the recurrent events and the rank 'em episodes that we do, that we started to do.
Right. Yeah. Rankum was part of this feed.
Right.
I did have recurrent events on a different feed. I don't know if we're gonna try to incorporate that all into one feed, or we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. But yeah, definitely want to do that. It's essentially the recurrent events was like an extended icebreaker.
Yeah.
Basically, the whole podcast is just current events that are about retro things.
Right, and we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna forego the icebreakers in these episodes, at least for the next, I don't know, so long, and see how we like it. But the icebreaker of the moment is, like we were just saying, retrocons plural.com. Going to the event was a blast. You can catch up our wrap up show, like Jason said, about the time when we release this, should be posted as well. It was a blast. We could go on and on about that. We don't want to delay our this current show, but
Sure.
At the same time, we had a blast. We, like Jason said, we went down memory lane, literally probably about a dozen times, going through the booths and tables and so forth. Got to see Dwight Schultz, aka Murdoch, and Dirk Benedict, Face Man. That was a blast, and you'll see that as well on the video. It was a treat.
Yes.
It's probably the more mild way. It was just like we were blown away at 2015. I think we're still blown away at 2017.
Yeah. Well, this time we did 2 days.
Yeah.
We did both days, and even a concert in between. We went to see the Cybertronic Spree, which were amazing. And I'll, again, I want this to be more of a teaser, so you'll go and listen to the podcast. But man, that was a great time. I was trying to remember the last time we went to a concert together, and I think it was when you were visiting. We drove up to Birmingham to see
that's right,
Civil Twilight in concert. They were a band I was really into at that time, and they're not really big, well known. And it was a cool venue up there, and we drove up to see them in concert. But this one, I think we rocked out a little bit more too.
More familiar, at least to me.
Yeah, I don't think Civil Twilight covers the Jason Wheeled Warriors theme, so
right.
That was pretty amazing. But yeah, check that out in the same feed as we go ahead and essentially transition into our show here. And we're just going to go back and talk about our early jobs, first jobs. We did end up working together for a season, and that's going to be kind of the main
talking point.
Interview.
You've heard it several times if you've been following us.
Right.
We always transition back to the radio station job.
Yeah, that was a neat experience for, I don't know, I guess that was about a year at least that we worked together.
Yeah, I think just under a year. But
well, we'll explore that as we get to it. But yeah, everybody starts out somewhere, and I don't think we're necessarily going to go into what we currently do. I know you can't, Mr. Secret Agent over here, but and I don't really want to talk about my job. No. But yeah, everybody has their own experience and how they start out, and just depending on where you're from in the country, what jobs are available. Usually it's fast food or the local retail stores and such that you get into first,
or grocery stores or movie theaters or something that's your starter job. Some are hater jobs. You just go kind of like the Al Bundy, again, shoe salesman. Or there are some that you just, even if you're flipping burgers, there's something about it that you liked about it. It might not be at the main food chain. Maybe you got lucky and pulled off into a working in the diner situation. So you got to see the 50s and 60s kind of era, and like that might be one of the better jobs you've had.
Yeah.
But yeah, we took it in stride. Both I say all our jobs, I think. So we're just going to start basically whenever we started our employment and work our way. I think our capstone is probably the WCPA, WQYX chat. That's when we broke off into I'll call it our future careers. You went off to college, I went off to the Air Force, and the rest is, 20 some years ago. But yeah. Yeah, well, let's start out. Where
Okay.
did you start out with your first job, and what drew you to it besides money?
Well, I'm trying to, yeah, it's always driven by money when you're a kid. And I had a couple summer jobs, and I can't remember exactly which one was first. I know I was still in high school. I guess would have been my junior year in high school. I think that was my first job, and I went through this the local like employment agency who was had this essentially it was a program for high school kids to work during the summer.
Mhm.
And I remember I had to have a journal. I had to like make a journal of kind of what I did each day and
Oh, wow.
quirky little things like that. And it was working for the township. So and there was we would meet at the high school, and then we had some like little training or just kind of what we needed to do for the summer, and then we essentially split off and went to our jobs. And there was I think probably three or four other guys that worked at the township, and it was fun. You got to see basically a glimpse into how the infrastructure of the little borough that we lived
Mhm.
worked. They all drove dump trucks and loaders, and those were all stored there in the garage. And there were several of those yellow pickup trucks
Yep.
full of tools and shovels and whatever, paintbrushes and everything that goes along
Keeping up with town.
with keeping up, yeah, the city or township. So during that summer, I got to put in like drainage
Ditches.
pipes.
Oh,
Yeah,
pipes.
basically digging the ditches somewhere across like dirt roads, to help the drainage. So that was seeing the guys work the backhoe and dump trucks and all that stuff. Lots of painting. We went around, painted everything from fences to fire hydrants, that needed painting. Little patchwork here on asphalt. Once in a while, they'd get a load of asphalt in the dump truck, and essentially we just drive around, find potholes,
Yeah.
to fill in, or when people complain, y'all come out here and fix this. That was us. Uh, there's some quirky things though I remember about that job, and one was there was, I don't know, a crew of maybe 10 or a dozen guys that worked there. That was their full-time job. And you clocked in at, I think it was 7, and for the first hour it was essentially breakfast. I mean,
Wow.
they would go in there, get their smoke on, they would have their coffee, whatever, shoot the
Breeze. Yeah.
breeze. And we just hang around for the first hour. I was like, okay. They would of course be making us like sweep the shop and little things like that.
Right.
And I was like, wow, okay, so we just get to sit around for the first hour. That's fine. And then I learned to mess with a few of them. One was this guy came in. He usually came in late. He was one of the bosses, and first thing he went for was a Mountain Dew out of the machine. There was a soda machine there, and it was one of the old ones with the huge buttons, on the
Yep.
front, and just a little tray right there. And at the time, my arms were pretty skinny, and I could reach in the soda machine, the pop machine, as we call up here in the north, since I'm in the north right now.
Yeah.
And I could reach up in there, and I knew I found where the Mountain Dew was, and I would pull out a can. Okay, so I got like a free can.
Right.
And then he would come in, pop his money in, and you
get
hear just a
nothing.
big clunk. And he would go into every 4-letter word there ever was. And me and the other, 3 or 4 guys that were the high school crew
Knew what happened.
we would just be rolling on the floor, because we were messing with these guys. And that's one thing I remember about that. And it's just these weird kind of things. But that was essentially the job. We rode around in the trucks, in the pickups, and even in the dump trucks and stuff, with the guys to different jobs throughout the summer, and you got to do some different things. It was working outside, which up here it's not quite as bad as it is in the South,
Right.
with all the humidity and everything that we go through down there. But it was fun. I don't have any really bad memories about doing that, and I made some money, and I was essentially kind of saving up for my first car
Mm-hmm.
that my dad offered to go halvesies with me to get. So that was I think the first one that I did, and I still have that journal somewhere. I gotta
Nice.
pull that out. I should have prepped a little bit more and try to find that thing and pull out and read some stuff about my first job.
Nice.
So that was it. What was the first job you remember?
Well, I'm going to piggyback just a little bit on his thing. When he said rode around in the trucks, this is old school when it was perfectly legal to ride around in the truck bed
Oh yeah,
of a truck.
yeah.
And now you can't do that without fearing a lawsuit or something.
Yeah, well, you're employed by the city anyway, so it's not like a cop was going to pull you.
No.
Yeah.
But yeah.
This was the job where I think I mentioned before, where we were sitting in the back and they'd have the sliding glass window open and they'd go over that hill.
There was a real sudden drop, and it was a small dip, but enough that, like my dad or them, you just hit it right. It was just like being on a roller coaster with that first hill when your stomach goes up to your throat. It was that moment, but it was a quick moment. And
and the old man driving, one of the employees, he would poke his head back through the window there to us riding in the pickup bed and be like, "Did that tickle your pee-pee?" Yes, sir. Anyway, I'm sorry, I hijacked your.
No, I actually injected that. So my first job, if you omit our true first job, both of us, I think, worked at one time or another at the high school when we literally mopped and swept the cafeteria.
True, yeah. So that was technically a job because we got paid.
We got paid, I think, $1 a day or something like
that.
To
mop and sweep up. And
there's a couple times it's not sanitary, and I didn't think about it at the time as a kid. But you're like, we gotta wash the seats and the tables anyway, so why don't we just use the same water? So there's a couple times where I didn't do it all the time, so don't yell at me. But we were like, let's just be efficient. But nonetheless, my first, I'll call it taxable job. I might get hit by the IRS now. First taxable job was working at a place. My dad got me the job. He worked at what was called Beard Oil Company. And they had multiple gas stations here and there. And the first job was a little place called the Old Town Road Exxon. And I'm trying to find it right now on my
and car wash.
And car wash, yes. And it was eventful, I'll call it.
I liked you working there because I got free car washes all the time.
Yeah, it was a nice thing. I don't know how many car washes I got. I got enough that I have swirly marks on my old Turismo that I had because I used it too much. So I'm going to do a little screen share because I'm just that nerdy.
There it is.
So this is the current establishment of the Old Town Road Exxon. I don't know if you can really see it very well. Pack Pride is still there, which was a card reader punch card, literally punch card, free gas. We got I'm sorry, not free gas, a fleet gas. That was how I got my employee discount. I think my discount was like 4 or 5 cents off above wholesale. So I was actually getting it for like, when gas prices were, I'll call it reasonable, 99 cents, I was probably getting it for like 90 cents a gallon. But here's the main thing, building. I thought I had another picture of it, but here's the hand bays back here, and this little tiny stick out shelter is the car wash booth. So I would go in there, push a couple buttons, enter the code, and boom, that's how Jason got his car washes. In our driving podcast, there used to be vacuum bays.
Oh yeah.
Right here, you see the pillar. There was also a pillar right in front of that pillar, I guess is the best way to put it. They had the vacuum bay, and there was a gap in between, and that's where I would drive. I would come out, like I say, if I parked a certain way, I would go out here, make the pass, just like this, if you follow my arrow, then come right out. And Jason was just about pooping himself because like, you gonna hit the mirrors.
Take out the mirrors on your
Yeah,
car.
but that was my first job. It was actually a fun job. We had a great first crew that we were there, very friendly, almost like family. Then they got a new manager in there. It was abrupt. There was no like cordial. Hey, we're thinking about moving this guy up or moving this from. They closed down one of their gas stations, moved him, and basically just pushed the old manager literally out the door. No warning. Then he basically cleaned house. So if he felt he didn't like you, we got canned, and I got tired of his so-called crap. Um, and I basically just left. It was the end was bitter. But working there for the first, I don't know how long, it went pretty well. And I mentioned in another podcast that I technically worked 3 jobs. I don't know if that actually worked. So here's the presenting to everyone. Hopefully it's up now on the video. I think it is. But here's the gas station just to double check. So back to us. I'm going to find the other jobs. So I worked technically 3 jobs. And I joked with that
Didn't
a lot.
you get a discount on sodas too? Because you always had like...
Yeah, we had discounts, like a 10% discount. And then they were trying to get rid of, this is back about the time that the big soda companies, pop companies were finally trying to transition out of the glass. We didn't know that was happening. But, I had the old glass 16-ounce bottles. And Pepsi would come down and basically clean house and have us do the discounts. It's $1.50 a 6-pack, and that was just insane, like Crazy Eddie. So I would go and get cases, and the local Pepsi distributor distributed Mountain Dew, Pepsi products, and Dr. Pepper. So I would go out and get a case of 4 6-packs of Dr. Pepper, sometimes 2, and I'd do the same with Mountain Dew for Jason. So I'd have that always.
You
in the car.
always had drinks in your car, man. I was we were never thirsty. It was always.
No, we were sugared hype though.
Yeah, and caffeine, Mountain Dew, and Dr. Pepper.
So my second job, I'm trying to find it, is I call it second job. The second station that I worked at was called the. My apologies, it didn't work out. This is what happens when you have dual monitor. It doesn't work right. So.
Share.
Yeah. How am I not? I know how to do this, and I don't know how to do this. So here's the Collinsville Exxon as it stands now, and you can see the Google camera shadow right here. So.
And the IGA.
Yeah, the old food liner IGA. Yeah. So this was basically after about almost a year. They asked if I would help out up here, this Exxon up here. Full serve, maybe 2 pumps right here. I think we sold, if we were lucky, we sold cigarettes and snuff. I don't think we even sold pop or anything like that. There was nothing going on in the garage. The garage was not used for anything. But yeah, I worked out of here. Carried a wad of cash in my back pocket for the change for people, and so forth. Had to run inside to go get to use the credit card machine.
I didn't realize you did the full service thing.
Yeah, we did full service here. And then the second one, or last gas station I worked at, was the Exit 16. Old Exit 16. It's not Exit 16 any longer. Yeah. I can't remember what the exit. I think it's 97 now. But anyway, right off Interstate 80, there was this another garage with a gas station, and this set of pumps was supposed to be the self-serve. This set of pumps was your full serve, and the price came with it. I can't remember what the price hike. I think it was 25 cents more a gallon to do
really.
This one. It was a serious hike. People still did it. I was surprised.
Yeah.
Very few and far between did I ever see customers though. I don't know what alienated people from this gas station. There's many a days I napped in my car in the bay here because it was so boring.
Now where exactly is this?
Du Bois, Pennsylvania. So right on the outskirts.
Okay, I'm trying to remember the exact location.
Right. Jason knows this kind of familiar, but back in this area is actually Falls Creek, the back way into, or the main way into Falls Creek. There used to be a set of,
Crick. Say it right.
Falls Creek. Yep. So this used to be a hotel right over here. I just now, when I did the research on this, I found out that this was, bulldozed. The owner lived over here on the right. So he just walked to work every day. But yeah, it was fun. All of the places were fun. At least at the gas stations, became, like I said, a rover, and it was fun. And then I finally just quit this altogether. I won't say, yeah, I quit it after I'd started my true second job, which would be WCPA, WQYX. But did you have anything in between before we hit?
The only other thing I can remember is one summer for a week I worked at the fair. And I can't remember if this got in our fair episode or not, because we had some technical difficulties and my microphone was jacked up, so I had to cut out some stuff. But I worked at it was a soda stand. So if you remember back in the day, they had those, they were, I would call cartons. They were made of that paper
wax,
yeah, paper wax material. And the whole stand was one of those cartons. It looked like one of those cartons. So it was kind of crammed in there.
I bet.
And we would, yeah, that's the only thing that we sold was those cartons of soda, and then they could come back and get a refill for a discount. And I got kind of thrown into that. When you're working for the fair, they just you were going to work at this booth,
Right.
So, and I wasn't really trained too well how to change out the the seltzer and the liquid, what do I want to say, syrup.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So there was a couple points where, and I was working with somebody else in there, so there was two of us, because we would get a pretty good line sometimes. But when one of those things went out, it was just like, okay, I'll just serve this last couple of customers here, and then we'll have to find somebody to change these out. So I remember like serving up some ones that probably didn't have enough syrup in there, and likely came back to us, and other ones where they didn't have enough seltzer, so it was more just like it was like Pepsi juice,
Right.
And the biggest thing was we had to put ice in it. We had to fill it at least half full with ice. That was our mandate.
Yeah.
And there was always people, and there always will be people that don't want the ice, and then you have to fight with them.
Right.
I'm sorry, we have to put ice in here. Well, why is that? Of course you want more drink, or if somebody else is you're going around the fair with just has the ice, you can share and dump it in with them, and essentially get 2 drinks out of 1 with as much ice as you dump in there. But so that was just a short 1 week job at the fair. I think that was probably my senior year, or right after. I guess maybe it would have been, I can't remember exactly when I started at WCPA, but it was right after I graduated. But I think I worked at the fair and then maybe went to work for WCPA in that same summer.
Okay.
But so that was, yeah, it was relatively uneventful, but that's what I do remember, having to battle people with the ice and learn how to change out the stuff to keep the machine going. But anyway, yeah, so about that time, you started while you were still a senior?
Yeah, I was a senior. I was actually going to the VOTEC school. We talked about this with our guest. But the teacher, Joe Peters, that was his name. His son worked at WCPA. He was getting ready to transition to college. So he knew that there was a job opening because it was his. And talked to Dad, and Dad, spread around the class. I think we had 8 or 10 kids. And me, because I already had a job, being the very humble, gracious kid that I am, I said, I don't want to raise my hand. Someone else might need a job. Wait about a day and a half, maybe 2, I don't remember. And Mr. Peters came right up and said, "Hey, you want the job? I'd love to have the job, but I already have a job. So whoever gets it, oh, sometimes you gotta learn. You just gotta raise your hand first." And I still remember I rose my hand. I'm ready to go. Let's go. I said, okay, I'll put a call into my son and we'll work out. It was easy. I walked in with met my what I called the celebrity of Clearfield, Bob Day, and that's who our guest was Bobby Day. So it's kind of an awe-inspiring because I'd seen him periodically throughout. I remember there was the old radio station contest. You had to listen, right? You had to have the call in, be caller number 7 or whatever it was. I don't remember what the quiz was, but I remember winning it. And I won a free 6-pack, the glass bottle back in the day when that was the original Coke bottle. And that was a big to-do. So we went to go down to WCPA, got to see him like in passing. I didn't even there's Bob. Oh, that was Bob. And that was about all I got. That was a sighting, he does exist. And then I think fast forward, one of my family members had a wedding and he was the DJ. And I said something, "Hey, Bob, I just want to say hi. I have, never met you and I want to meet you." And he's like, "Oh, great. Well, good meeting you." And he was very gracious, but he was very aware of his time, maybe because of radio. So it was like a 30-second, "Hey, how you doing? Yeah, well, great meeting you," and he just moved on. And a lot of our conversations working there were kind of similar. There would be times where we'd just be chatting, and he knew that he had only 2 minutes or something to prepare for news or promos or whatever he had to do in the production booth. And where'd he go? Okay, I guess the conversation's over. Missed a memo. So it was
very time conscious.
Yeah, he was. But I started, and I was just thumbing through here. I had come across this. I kept this. Me, I'm the hoarder. So this is my contract, employment agreement, rather. Started on 6 September of 1993 for a term of 1 year or further. And it's the whole contract. I found that through my nostalgia books.
Wow.
I can't remember how many pages this is. But there's my starting pay, $4.25 an hour. This was a generic contract. So even the full-time DJs got the same thing.
$4.25 an hour.
I had 14 days of notice in writing.
Was that like minimum wage back then?
Yeah, that was. Which is kind of funny because at this gas station I actually had a raise. I was up to $4.35. So yeah, and then there's Bobby Day's signature. This was Carrie Swatsworth. She was basically a witness.
She was the quote unquote secretary.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's Charles.
Worked the front desk.
LeBrook. I don't know. I don't remember him. And then me, of course.
He might have been the sales guy that I was trying to remember the other day.
Could have been.
Worked up front.
So yeah, this was my contract. It was.
That's crazy. You still have that.
Yeah.
And scanned it in, obviously. To. So you started. So that would have been right after you started your senior year of high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
93 to 94 was our senior year. And yeah, I was trying to remember exactly when, because you had been there for a while, and I came on. It was after I graduated. So I kind of fiddle farted around, as I'll say, because I didn't know what I wanted to do after school, and I pretty much told my parents and everybody I was taking a year off. I was going to take a year off and figure out what I wanted to do. And that came along, and obviously I wanted to make some money somehow.
Right.
And the shift, what shifts did you work mainly? You were the night, overnight?
Mostly the nights and overnights. Initially, I was just one night a week. So it was easy to have 4 jobs because I was able to work a separate day, separate job. So Sunday night was my initial night. I started with a little show. I'll punch it up here with
Don Kennedy and Big Band Jump on WCPA Clearfield, a service and part of the Progress, your family newspaper.
So that was Big Band Jump, and we had Don Kennedy.
Big Band Jump is heard each week at this time on 900 CPA. I'm Don Kennedy, thanking you for listening.
That dude, his voice was so monotone.
Yes.
I remember doing some shifts on Sunday morning. is when they would play a big band jump. I don't know if they did it twice or if that was just they moved the slot whenever they played it. Oh my gosh, that was like the worst show ever. And nothing against big band music.
No,
because there's actually, you know, I can actually listen to a few tunes from the big band era, but the dude was there is
very monotone. Even with his deep voice, he was very monotone. And there was many times the girl taught me. She says, when you're bored, you can mess with Bob, maybe Carl, if you feel like it, and you're going to get a comment no matter what you do. And I'm like, okay, what do you mean? On the cassette player.
Yeah, the show was on cassette.
Yes, yes. So you literally would change the pitch. So every now and then you'd have them speed up or slow down just to give something variety. And
get Alvin and the Chipmunks hosting big band for a while.
Well, I didn't get it too high. But every night, or every morning rather, because I would work 6 to 1, and there was a point where I was actually working true from 6 till like 4 a.m. There was a couple of nights, weekends, Sundays, or whatever. I did that. Bob, fresh in the morning, would walk in. If it was cold, he actually had hot chocolate, so he kind of smoothed the training, I'll call it, mentoring. He said, I heard old Don Kennedy getting a little speed up last night. Yeah, Bob, you're right.
Busted.
And it was every time. No denying, I did it every week. It's like I had to.
Did these men ever sleep?
Yeah.
Because Carl, who was the general manager, we dreaded making any kind of mistake.
Oh, yes.
And the phone, it was a silent ring essentially on the phone. You could hear it out in the lobby, or I can't remember.
The newsroom was where the ringer actually sat.
Where the ringer was, yeah. But we had lights, so for I think several different lines.
There's 3 lines. They all rang in the same line, and then basically it was automatically shifted to like line 2 and line 3.
Okay. But you know, when you're, this is we got to kind of explain too. We were hired to basically operate the station, the board, and there was no kind of automation at the time. This was just kind of in the cusp of the digital era, and they did get into some digital stuff, but they it was almost like they learned as they went on the digital.
Yes,
because it wasn't all incorporated, and you actually learned a lot more, I think, about that system than they knew.
Yeah,
at some points. But we would go in, here is the board. So and Bob goes into this in the interview, but most boards you think of have the little slider pots to go up and down with the volume, and these were all the dials.
Right here. Yeah.
Is this the actual board?
This is the actual, not our physical one that we have, but the same model. Everything's the same board that we had.
So so you turned it all the way to the left, and there was a
cue lock.
Yeah, there was a lock, and that was your cue speaker, and you had a speaker down below the board where you could hear essentially what was going through that channel before you put it on the air. So you would hear, if you had a show coming through, you would hear 10 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever.
Or you'd hear like
a tone, or
you'd hear tones, or sometimes you'd have a network like Rush Limbaugh or something like that.
Yeah.
And you'd have their spots, but then we had the station commercials we had to play. So the program was turned down in the queue, so you knew how to follow and pace yourself while you're sitting there playing. And I keep flicking switches because it's still automatic. These were all the cart machines. So cart 1, 2, 3, and I can't remember what. I think that was the CD player. And then you could select. There was a menu that you did. They did the old tape. What do you call it? The old press tape. Where you can make your own label whatever.
Yeah.
Makers. So you had cart 1, cart 2, cart 3, and then this might be CD1, CD2, cassette. Whatever they had labeled, I can't remember all of it now, but that was it. And you flipped. This was cart 1. It would start, and you'd have a little cue spot, and I actually still have a label. Oh my gosh! This was one of the labels that we had. Now, the cue was various, so you didn't know what was coming up, so you just had to really be on time and watch the timer. That set up. I still remember this to this day. Right hand side, upper right, up on top of the desk. And it was a homemade, I swear, Radio Shack job, but it was red, red LEDs, and you'd see the timer. You knew about 8, 9 seconds. You'd had to flip to the next. Yeah. I say flip, so we're going back to
and they wanted it tight, man. I mean, if there was a few seconds of dead air, they're like, you need to work on that. You know, you get a phone call. What happened with that break there? You know, and it was like, do these men ever sleep? That they're always listening to the station.
I still remember one
It's
call.
like they walked around with a portable radio, you know, with the headphones on.
Still remember one call.
Everywhere.
Carl called me up. It was like dead of night, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. And we had promos. We didn't even have to play the promos. I did it as practice. And
yeah, we got like a script essentially every day. There was a script of when the commercials are played, what show was going on, what time the breaks were, and everything.
We had to check off or initial every time we were done. And at the end of the page, we had to actually sign our name to that saying, yeah, it was complete. Okay, page 2, and just go on that.
But there would be times where there was nothing. There was no, we wouldn't be required to play any local commercials, any promos, and you just leave it on the satellite commercials essentially, because they always had stuff. And you turn their commercials down essentially to play their local commercials during certain breaks. So that's where I think this is where you got the call, where instead of just playing the satellite commercials, you decided, I'm just going to throw some promos in here.
Yeah, and it might have been during the night, but I still had promos. Whatever it was, I had promos. So some of you might have listened to us before, but the promos are station type commercials, only for the radio station or shows that are on the radio station. So Rush Limbaugh,
ESPN radio,
that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean there was several, and there was the announcers from the shows here. Listen to ESPN radio at night, and then we'd throw in a jingle at the end to identify, this is on WCPA.
Right, and then, but I was 2 seconds ahead. I was actually ahead of the game. So when I turned the satellite back on, I had 2 seconds of dead air.
Oh, okay.
And Carl, and it wasn't like, hey, how's it going? It was, was there 2 seconds of dead air? I basically said, sir, I'm sorry. I basically beat them. I'm ahead. Oh, well, you got to time it out, stretch it out a little bit more then. Because that's my name. He schooled you. That's my name. That's not WCPA. That's Carl Falvo on the air representing. That's a professional radio station.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That was he ran it like almost like a military unit.
Right.
And he wanted it professional, no matter how unprofessional us little board operators were. Yeah, he wanted you to learn. He wanted it to be very listenable. That was it. Basically, dead air was a chance for people to turn the station, or, heaven forbid you have to throw on the technical difficulties, a little cart too.
Which you've heard or will hear on our show here. So I'm going to kind of go down memory lane. This is something I kept plugging away with Jason. I have found
my gosh,
me and my memories, I am very nostalgic, and I can actually remember a lot of things. So this is essentially, to the best of my ability, this is a floor plan of the radio station. And what you are seeing right now, if I can get it to work.
Well, there's the Q Cruiser out front.
That is our Q Cruiser.
We had a Dodge. It was a Dodge Caravan, right?
Dodge Caravan.
And
there's the Q Cruiser.
I'm like, look at you. Nice.
That is 3D.
The Q
yeah. That's the actual tower back here that transmitted up to the main towers to go wherever. That was also our Marty. If you remember, there was a little, Marty was the brand name. There was a little mini radio station, a box that sat in the Q Cruiser that came back to the radio station when we did live events.
Live remotes, yeah.
And then we literally retransmitted it right back up to the main tower from there. There's the Methodist Church there too. So yeah. So and there's the door entrance to the place, even though I shifted it off to the side. And then one of our people that we talked about, there is Deidre Mayhew. I was able to grab a picture of her, and that's her.
She was another one of the board ops.
Yeah, that's like her dad's Ram Charger or something in the background. I can't remember now.
Wow, man, you've kept a lot. I do have a picture of the Q Cruiser somewhere with my blue Pontiac 6000 next to it, but
I couldn't find. I don't know why I missed it. I don't know why I didn't take a picture of it.
Teacher with a cigarette.
Yeah, she had a cigarette. She couldn't let that go.
I remember one thing I remember about her was she was in a car accident, and she came in and she had these huge bruises from the seat belt, and I felt sorry for her.
Yeah, but I didn't take a picture. So the Q Cruiser dubbed was for the AM and the FM. On the AM side, which would have been the side where you see Deidre there on the right, was
This
the
is
Chicken
awesome.
Mobile. And I didn't take a picture of the Chicken Mobile. It was modeled after the San Diego Chicken.
The mascot.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So yeah, imagine that black caravan in the parades
with the chicken
with the
kind of
chicken,
leaning,
yeah,
setting sort of thing.
like the San Diego Chicken.
I
was
think it had a
such
microphone with a string, the cable.
Oh my
hanging out.
gosh.
So you walk in the main door, right? And here's the main lobby. I didn't account for the desks and stuff because I really didn't care. But here you can kind of see there was windows like you see right here into the recording booth. This was the AM booth that we've talked about.
On the left, yeah.
And this was the newsroom, which was not a newsroom anymore. It might have been back in the day when they had big honking machines.
Yeah, and the newsroom had some reel-to-reel machines. It had the AP wire.
Yes,
You remember that?
It's still there. Just let me walk this through.
Oh, okay, go ahead. All right, I won't go too far.
So,
God damn.
So here is Carl Favell's office.
Yeah,
I found this clipping. I've had this clipping for years. But here's old Carl.
There he is.
My apologies for not knowing how to run this very well. There's Carl and
Bob. Yeah,
Bob
there we go.
In his room, basically. So yeah, that was his office. I'm gonna pan out now, and we can go into our studio. Maybe if I figure this out, I apologize for, like I said. So here you entered a red door. I still remember the red door to this day. I didn't account for it, but it's here.
Oh, you don't have the on-air lights.
I did. Oh, I forgot about that. So you walk down this hallway, and let me get a better overhead shot here for you guys. So down here on the left was our cook machine, our kitchen, so to speak, and that was the only legit place you were supposed to be able to have drinks and food. We'll get into that.
No one ever. No one ever.
Especially me being guilty. Sorry, Bob.
Yeah.
Right here was the restrooms. There was a male and female. Male was like right here. Female's over here, I think. This was the storage room that we talked about with Bob last night. We had that was where the chicken rested. Mostly it was all the old reel-to-reels or old CDs,
and
even
prizes
the prize
and
packs.
stuff. Yeah, those were all back in there.
So we turned the corner. If I turn the corner, and we enter into our booth, and I had to put this mural up for Bob, being how much he meant. This was the left wall. There's actually another window right here to the production room.
Yeah.
But this is Bob. He's over at WOKW 102.9 FM out of Clearfield, and he does a Golden Oldies show on Sundays, and that's him right there. We were talking about the faders that are now slides rather than the pots that we talked about on the board. So let me see if I can get this to work just right. So here is the board like we were just showing there. There's a couple images of the cart machines that like we had. So you flip a switch, there's the cart machine. Wait till it's about ready to go. Wait for your cue mark. Boom, cart number 2. And there was a third one. I couldn't fit the pictures in right well enough.
And it was pretty tall. There was like a tall counter almost, and
almost
this was piled up. So you could see people coming in from the newsroom there. You could see their heads, and unless you're CJ, who was like 6'5", and you could definitely see him coming.
This is the speaker. This is our monitor speaker that we had.
Yeah.
For the and it was actually legit wired to must have been like an FM tuner or something, or AM tuner rather, because if anything happened to the tower, like in a storm, that speaker went dead, and that's how you knew we lost signal.
Yeah.
So again, we were talking about last night specifically. It's not going to work. I can't zoom in. I'll zoom out.
There's production.
Yep. Oh, I zoomed out too far. Technical difficulties. Please stand by.
I can't believe you put the.
There it is. I zoomed into the wall.
Great.
So, if I can do this right now. So we were talking about the tower control, remote control. I don't know if I can place myself in here or not. So here.
Oh yes.
Here is the rack that we were talking about. Here's all the patch panels Jason was alluding to. I learned how to rewire that radio station pretty well with these patch panels. You were supposed to know because there were times where this was simulcast, meaning both AM and FM were on the same show at the same time. So yeah.
Now, one thing we need to explain, because they had to go through this, I had to do this too, because I didn't learn a whole lot about the technical stuff, but you had to power down the radio station every night. And the AM waves after dark, for some reason, it was like they'll travel a lot farther.
Oh, yes.
So you were required by the FCC to essentially power down your radio station at night.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to hit this. There was a button or something over there, or
Yeah,
maybe a different frequency or something.
You had to reduce the power, and it was literally you just reduced the wattage.
Yeah.
Out of it, and I can't remember what it was like. It was like 5,000 watts during the day, and then at night it dropped down to like 100 or 200. It was something minuscule, but wow,
it was weird because if you've ever listened to AM radio, or remember AM radio back in the day, you could hear stations you never heard during the day because the signal would travel farther. So they required you to power that down. We had to remember to do that at a specific time, like at dusk, or I can't remember exactly.
There was a set time. And it was on the schedule too. So you knew
power down at this time
at 6:05, and then 2 days later it might be 6:08. So
that was an important part of your job as a board operator. Obviously making sure everything's running smoothly on the air, but you had to power that signal down.
Yeah. So this was the remote control to the transmitter. This reel-to-reel was primarily used for one of our shows. You more so during the day. I don't know if I can find it here.
I don't remember using that.
Oh, you should know. You did it every freaking day. Oh.
Hello, Americans. I'm Paul Harvey.
Oh, yeah, that was the Paul Harvey.
You know what the news is. In a minute, you're going to hear
the rest
of the story.
So that's where Paul Harvey resided.
Good day?
Yeah. I have that somewhere too.
Yeah, we did Paul Harvey. It was mainly during the noon hour, I think.
Yeah.
For the news.
Get past the wall.
And then we did the rest of the story, I think, later in the day.
Yeah.
I think that was a separate part. But
oh
my God.
So here's one of the record players. You can see there's an ear of the second one. This was Jason's monitor speaker for the FM studio.
That's always cranked.
Yeah.
That thing can crank out some tunes, let me tell you.
So you can see back here, this was actually behind on this wall, behind the rack. But this was our carts for Sun Radio Networks, all the talk shows right here. And then it was also our we joined this program already in progress, whatever show it was.
There's just a ton of whatever you needed, there were specific times when you needed specific cards.
Yeah, and there's the one record that's always loaded on that.
Yeah, it was. Now the one on the left was, I want to say, it was a 33 record.
Yep.
And it was maybe Kenny G or something. I don't know. I remember one of the songs was Silhouette by Kenny G that you could play, and this one over here, I don't know. It was some random tune, I think.
I think it was, but there were times, especially when Penn State won, another one bites the dust.
Yeah. On Saturdays when we do Penn State games, we were required by the general manager to play another one bites the dust right after the Penn State won, after the game.
Jason signed up. We talked about this, Bob and I, last night on our chat. There was a screen. I don't know if I can do this again. I have to do the overview. And my son's calling me. So here was the only place you could have your water. This little corner cabinet. And you could only bring a drink if it was purchased at the radio station. I remember that. So you could only buy the Coke that was out of the
I don't remember that stipulation, but okay.
It was later on. And then there was this green screen up here. That was where the old automation for the radio station was for the FM side. It was a rack-mounted system, and I talked to Bob at length with that, how it worked. Then we were talking about the newsroom. So again, I don't know if this will work for me if I can sit this down in there. There's the reel-to-reels that Jason was talking about.
Oh, yeah. And you had to use the now one of them. See, I remember one of them was like an extended song session, basically. So, and I don't know if maybe Bob used it or when we exactly used it, but it was set up to where you had like 3 hours worth of songs or something on there in case something happened or whatever. And did we record? Was this where we recorded Johnny Holiday, or was it in the satellite room?
It was Johnny Holiday sat in this cart machine.
Yeah, so Johnny Holiday was like a 5-minute sports show report. and you would record it each day. You had a card in there, and you'd have to go in there. I think it was like maybe at 5:30 or 6:30. It was at the bottom of the hour, and you had your intros and stuff out there, and then you just had to go in there and remember to grab that cart to play.
And there was about a
play
10-second. I think it was about a 10-second like pause or
yeah. So
or
you had to kind of
absence.
cue it up a little bit.
Right, and that's the one when we talked about meet the hosts in our episode where I was messing with Jason, and it was just fabulous to mess with him. You know, he knew what he was doing, but it was still, I call it wet behind the ears. I'm like, go get Johnny, go get Johnny. I'll get it. Don't worry. And then just grab the cart,
throw it in, and
throw it in.
we did it that one time. It was just like perfect,
Yeah.
and it was a miracle.
So yeah. So over here is the automation, or not really the automation, but
well, this is where the AP wasn't that the AP wire right there too, right underneath the
let me get this
headphones
to
on
work right. It's right over here. Whenever I get it to work right. Again, I apologize for the viewers, but you'll see it.
Okay. But yeah, we would get throughout the day, the AP would
I'll do it
send
this
you
way.
news
This is
stories,
easier.
and you would go in periodically. There you go.
Right in the corner.
The old pin-fed, paper and such, and they would send you stories, periodically throughout the day, and we'd go in every once in a while and pull them off. So for the the news breaks and for the noon news, we'd go and hand them to Bob, and Bob would, we can run this story, or we can run this one, and essentially sometimes we would rewrite them to, basically, because it's just this happened, this happened, this happened. You have to rewrite it to make it sound better when you broadcast it on the air. So yeah, that I remember having to go in there and do that periodically too, and every once in a while I'd just go in there and check and see, because there would be time, when you're board operating a talk show, you have extended periods where they're doing the talking. So it's like 10, 15, 20 minutes sometimes where you're just waiting for a commercial to be played. So you go in and you just kind of, let me check out the AP wire and see what's happening around the world.
Yeah.
And this station is where I honed my crossword skills, because we got the progress every day, and I got to the point where I was the only one doing the crossword in the paper. So all of my my lingo and crossword puzzle skills came from working at this radio station.
So we were talking about there were times, especially more towards the night, where we had to go change the satellite feed with a crystal. So we'd have to run around this booth over here that was super tall, walk around. We had to put the 60-second, so we could run through this door, back to the sat room, which is that right there. And it was this panel right here, and their crystal sat right up top here. Take this little panel off, remove a crystal, put the new crystal in, then haul butt back through here, right around. I think the quickest I had 10 seconds to spare on one of those.
I never timed myself, but I know there was some shows where it was tight.
Yeah.
And you had to remind yourself and make sure, just get in the habit of, as soon as I pop in this card, I got to run.
That's it. So that was our newsroom.
Your doors kind of, they're luckily all just the push doors,
Yeah. So then we walk down the hallway. This is our FM booth over here. Again, if I can get this to work right.
And we had, I think I remember when I was there was at least one FM DJ that they would do one segment that was local. I think usually
at night was the typical, but sometimes they did a morning show.
Yeah, CJ had it at night. I was thinking there was at one point they did a morning show.
That was Ricky Shea.
Okay.
Who was our morning guy.
And then eventually we got to playing more satellite feeds. So
no, it was a satellite. That was our backup, which turned into a more full-time anymore. And the common line for every answer to most questions was, when the phone rang, "Hi, can I make a request and dedication? Sorry, you'll have to call the 800 number."
Call the 800 number, yes.
So it was hilarious.
There wasn't a local DJ playing your music.
No, every now and then you got someone that would argue with you. So no, I won a contest. They said to call this number. No, they didn't. It's not here.
Not this station.
Yeah.
You got to call Texas.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So.
Oh, and yeah, I remember when CJ was there doing the night shift, he hated because he would get the request and he would oblige some people, but it was at the time when the song "I Swear" there was the country version and then there was the All for One version, which we played. Holy crap, there he is.
That is our DJ CJ. This is my film actually when I got whatever you call it, made it into pictures, developed. Sorry. This actually, all these lines are like funky yellow, whatever. It basically distorted it. This saved me. So the Black and White Rider.
He always wore some crazy shirts too.
Yeah, he did.
And you can't really tell, but yeah, he had a long ponytail. He would tuck it in his shirt, when he had to dress up for something. But he was a trip. He was fun to be around, and he would mess with you too. And he would play songs that you knew you hated.
There was one in particular. We said this at Meet the Host, but there was one night where CJ in particular asked Jason to go to CJ's house, record on his stereo all the demo tapes.
Yeah, he basically wanted to make a demo of himself for future radio stations, if something happened or whatever.
And that's how you're sold. That's how
you're selling your, I'm going to do this hour, I'm going to do this right, and you're going to record it, help me record it,
Right. So I walked in, we were just chit-chatting one night, and goes, "Oh, hey, feel like pissing off Jason right about now?" Like, oh, this could be good. So I said, "Yeah, let's do that." He's like, "Okay." So he opens the mic, and we're sitting there. Well, I'm waiting for this dramatic intro, and all of a sudden he says, "Well, we got a dear friend of ours," or something like this, that really just favors this song. It's one of his favorites, something, and I want to dedicate it to a good friend of ours, Jason. And I go, "It's 500 miles." And before he uttered the words, like he was like on the. I'm gonna go back to the screen share because I just now noticed it's in this picture.
The phone, the
lights. If you can see it, you can see it clear.
Right down below there.
There's 3 lights. I don't know if you noticed it. That light was ringing, and CJ picked up the phone. I can't remember where it sat now. I think it was actually on the wall. And all I hear through the phone is, "I hate that song." So it was hilarious.
Oh yeah, and I was yeah. I'm sure I said some choice words, but the crazy thing is I've heard the song a couple times recently and haven't turned it. Imagine that. But
yeah, that was our FM side that we did. It was automated. This is actually how I made my cassettes, my custom mixtapes. It was here. So you walk back around the hallway,
and it was cool because they had a subscription to whatever service to send them.
It was the top 40. I can't remember who.
Yeah, it was essentially send them the new music, new singles they were going to release, to pop
radio.
Some were
new singles, some was like a compilation of like the top 20 songs of May, June, whatever.
Yeah, it was every month. So you got the latest music sitting right there for you. So if there's a song that you really liked, you could essentially just grab the CD. I think I made them maybe in the AM room too, because they had a CD player and then the cassette player down below. You could make your own mixtape with the latest music, you know.
Well, me knowing how to rewire, when we put the computer on automation, there was one kill switch that separated the whole studio from basically the transmitter.
Mm-hmm.
So if you hit that kill switch, it's on automation, so the studio's fair game. So I would patch over on this rack that was over here. I'd patch over into the production room, which is here, if I can get to see through the wall. And here's the mixing board, which I didn't actually use that one much. But here's how we made our commercials and jingles and spots. We're all right here. Here's the actual recording cart machine that was there.
I remember writing and rewriting stories on that desk during my internship there.
Right. Trying to get into the room now, which might take a minute. So, I should have practiced this music. So anyway, well, now I'm outside. Get above.
That was about it, wasn't it? Except for like there's some offices in the back for
Yeah,
some of the other
so here's what I'm trying to get to.
DJs and news people.
Here's the far wall where the tape deck. This was the real machine. We recorded every single Bison's college course, whatever that we broadcast. Bob and Carl Sr. broadcast. We had to record it, I think, for legalities, just to make sure that we didn't say something, misspeak or something. And here's the tape deck that I recorded all my stuff on. There was a CD player down here, another set of patch panels, and so forth. This was our library, the Canary. Still remember the Canary?
Oh my gosh, yes, that was all your music bed. So when you, well, you're probably gonna play the weather one or something.
It's not this music. It's like this one.
Yeah, so it was just like random
music that you could pick, like
instrumentals.
Right, so you had your news. Some people had news agencies and whatever else. We had ABC News. WCPA. So we had ABC News was our contract. So it was sweet what we did there.
All your mixes together, yeah, and then. Yeah, you would. That's where Bob would cut all the local commercials, and you would see them in there. There's the window between the AM and FM, or AM and production room, so you could see Bob in there cutting commercials and hear them. And yeah, and like I was saying, that you had an on-air light into each studio. So for the production room, and the AM I think it was just on the left side of the AM. I don't think it was on the other side where the newsroom was. And then down in the FM room, it was like a clear plastic with the red lettering, and then it would kind of illuminate.
Yeah.
When you essentially flick the switch to go on the air.
Yeah.
So you never went in while that red light was on, or if you did, or you had to, it was very quietly because you knew they were on the air. Giving a newscast or something. But.
Right. And like I was saying, when we would mix, and I'm still nostalgic. I still have all these liners. I recorded every single one before I left. And so most of my MP3 playlists have been, I have put the jingles in from the QYX. So I might listen to.
Lock in the best, forget the rest. QYX.
And I play that all the time. I should know it by heart by now. So yeah, we did that. We had promos for ESPN and stuff. Jason and I can spout off.
Yeah, we can. There's a lot we can do. There's a couple from Rush Limbaugh. There's one with like a lady singing opera.
I did a compilation for you.
You did that. Oh my gosh.
As we sign out, instead of my little typical rhyme that I come up with, I got one for that'll be our close.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, we need to take a break and go ahead and go into the interview with Bob at some point here.
Yeah, and this would probably be a great time to do that.
So we'll cut and splice that in so you can hear our quick little interview with Bob.
All righty, we are here live on our podcast, Memory Jogger. We're going to talk about our first jobs, but to intro it, we are actually going to kind of cut and splice for our listeners and our viewers because we have a special guest. Jason is, I'll call it, almost unaware of who I have brought on the line. But this is, I'll tell you what, he's been our mentor, a good friend. He taught us a lot of the foundations of what we know as podcasters, broadcasters, and so to speak. So I want to intro him correctly. WCPA. Bob Day, welcome to our humble Memory Jogger podcast.
Well, welcome aboard, guys. Good to talk to you. Jason, it's been an awful long time. Wyatt, I talked to you a couple of days ago just kind of in preparation, but great to talk to you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on our humble podcast. We've been podcasting, I'll say collectively, with a myriad of podcasts for what, about 4 or 5 years now?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and
well, you guys worked at WCPA. You were both still in high school, weren't you?
Yes.
I was actually right out of high school when I started. I had no idea what I wanted to do. So Wyatt said, "Come work for us down here." So yeah, it was about a year after I graduated. I was working there.
Now, the one thing I remember about Jason, he was an LA Lakers fan. Is that true?
That is still true, sir. Wow. Yes. One thing I remember about you, Bob, is you're a walking music encyclopedia. As
Well,
far as, year
I
and song and maybe even the the company that put out the record.
yeah, I sometimes can come up with the record label and the whole ball of wax. Yeah.
You would have been great for our. We went to what's called a RetroCon up in Oaks, Pennsylvania here just over this weekend. Today they had their trivia game, music trivia. I think
Oh
you would have been a
my!
shoe-in.
Yeah, you would have walked away with a bunch of stuff.
How'd you guys do?
Oh, we didn't get anything because we actually were scouring the tables for collectibles and stuff and didn't quite make it to the trivia. They had a trivia yesterday that was more around television shows and movies and stuff, but didn't get anything on that one either.
Well, it's really great that you're keeping the broadcast thing going. I mean, this is something that has stayed with you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I got the bug with electronic technology there at Votech, and I actually got the job because of I can't remember my teacher's name, right? It escapes me right now, but his son worked the Sunday night. I call it the PM shift because it was 6 p.m. to I think 11 or 1, and he was getting ready to go off to college, and basically he was raising the hand to give us guys if anybody wanted a job there, and I had already had technically three jobs, really one, but I was a floater for the Beard Oil Company, the local Exxon gas stations.
Mm-hmm.
And I bowed out initially because being humble, I'm like, I already have a job. I'd love to work in radio, but I have a job. Let's have someone else. 2 days later, the teacher comes up to me and says, "Don't you want the job?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm chomping at the bit, but I have a job." "Hey, you got to learn. You got to raise your hand first sometimes." "Okay, here's my hand. Let's go."
Yeah.
And the next thing I know, it wasn't really an interview. It was, "Do you think you can push play on the cart machines?" And boom, here I am. And you took me under your wings. I don't know how many times I called you panicking over the littlest things, especially on the old transmitter tower. Did I do it right? We had a storm one night. I remember panicking.
It was all remote control operated over the phone lines. Yeah.
Right. And I remember panicking like crazy. And then after you got me all settled down, you said, "You know what? All the instructions are right there on the side of the rack." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" All this time, I never saw that thing there. And you're very gracious because you said, "It's not a problem. I'm here to make sure that radio station goes on and make sure you are trained. And hey, I might have skipped the step that, hey, if there's ever a problem, you look on the side of the rack." And here we are. Here I am doing. Next thing I know, here I am doing broadcast with Jason, podcasting, and well, then the rest. I invited him on board about 4 or 5 months after I had joined the WCPA staff.
Right. And that was, I mean, just thinking about that time, like I said, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And, why not? You sit in front of a board, you listen to Rush Limbaugh and Gene Burns for half the day, and it was fun. It was fun. And Mr. Falvo, Senior, is the one that really kind of gave me the push into, you've got a pretty good voice, and doing a few newscasts here and there, and got more comfortable with it. And
Carl was a longtime general manager. He passed away a few years ago.
Yes, unfortunately,
I
I
did
remember
hear
seeing
about
that.
But I guess we're talking about our jobs. Since you are on the line with us, tell us a little bit about your experience with radio, I guess, and just in general, and how you got into it and so forth.
Well, it's coming up on 50 years ago, guys. I started in December of 1967 at WCPA. I remember the first song I played on the air Monday morning, December 14th, 1967. I played Hello, Goodbye for the Beatles.
Nice.
And I thought at the time, you know, maybe 6 months and I'd go to the big city, but I turned out I liked it. And it's been it'll be, like I say, it'll be 50 years this December that I've been in Clearfield.
Were you well, you said 50 years in Clearfield, so you were a transplant. You came out of or came in or moved in from another part of the country?
Yeah, I grew up in Michigan, not too far out of Detroit, Michigan, yeah. Answered an ad in Billboard magazine to get a job.
Wow. That's great.
That's awesome. So, yeah, and then you were, I just remember you as Mr. Everything there. I mean, news and...
Well, absolutely. In a small market, we did news. We did a DJ show. We did sports, high school football, high school basketball, whatever the station wanted. We'd go to the county fair and we'd broadcast live from the fair. We'd do a live remote. I can remember we broadcast soapbox derby. You know, just whatever needed to be done. We broadcast the harness racing live. Come to think of it.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, when you guys were there, was that the sports at night, the talk show?
Yes, we had. In fact, I still have most, if not all, the liners. At the time, I thought it was copyright infringement, so I kept it under wraps for many, many years. Jason knew I had them, so I didn't do much with it as far as public knowledge. But it's been at least 23 years for me being in the military.
I think it's safe. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're on their second owner, so I don't think I'm at any fear of anything right now. But yeah, we had Sports Byteline USA, we had Sun Radio Networks, and the myriad of shows that they carried. We had Big Band.
We did a lot of live broadcasts too. We did college football, college basketball. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember doing Penn State games on Saturdays, and if they won, I had to play Queen's Another One Bites the Dust.
Absolutely. We used to do a warm-up show before the games. We played all these Penn State fight songs and all those things. You know, and we're what, 40 miles out of State College.
Right.
But back then, every game wasn't on TV. I mean, radio was the only way you could get the games back then.
Right, and I still remember. I don't know if you still do this, Bob. They're working at the newer. I call it the newer radio station of Clearfield, WOKW. Do you still broadcast rather, saying it's left to right across your AM dial?
We do. Believe it or not, Carl Falvo's son Mark helps me with the football broadcast. He does the color for me and the play-by-play that I do, and we still say left to right across your radio dial unless you don't have a radio dial.
Right. Old habits. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks or something like that. I don't know. Of course, it's really different. I mean, when I started, we used tape, and we spliced tape with a razor blade and stuck it together when you wanted to edit something, you know, and now it's all electronic. But we did it reel to reel the hard way.
Right, and I'm holding up. I know you can't see this, Bob, and hopefully you'll have time maybe at the station to use YouTube and see the show after we do it. But I'm holding up a tape. It's not one from WCPA, not that they can do anything about it now. But I worked at a second radio station after I joined the Air Force. I couldn't kill the bug within me to work in radio. But there I swiped one of the carts there.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm holding it up right now.
It looked just like an 8-track tape to anybody that remembers what an 8-track tape looks like. It had one difference. It was just one track, and it had a little wheel in it that drove up against the drive shaft as opposed to just a pressure that the 8-tracks used back in the day.
Right. And that's what like I say, I'm showing to our audience. We have about 100 to 150 downloads consistently.
That's neat.
So, but yeah, I'm holding up one of our carts right now that we we know. I kept it as nostalgia because I'm sentimental. I probably have half my house is sentimental stuff.
I did a talk at one of the area schools here not too long. It's been a couple of years now. The West Branch School District, which is close by, and I took in a 45 RPM record and a 33 1/3 RPM record and a cassette. And I held them all up and said, "Does anybody in the room?" I think they were all sixth graders. I said, "Does anybody know what any of these items are?"
That's awesome.
And did any raise their hand?
No, well, I got it. Somebody said, "Well, my dad has one of those in his truck." You know.
Right.
Yeah, I've got two sons and a daughter now, and my two oldest sons, I've subjected them to pretty much everything that I grew up with, and tried to get them to, okay, here's a Walkman, here's a cassette, get it to work, you know. And you know, for the most part, they've done well. They forget what each thing is called and that sort of thing, but you know.
Did you know this is something you may or may not know? Before 8-track tapes, they actually developed a 4-track tape, and that was the first thing that came out for in your automobiles. But it just didn't last. It was out for a few months, and boom, they went right to the 8-track.
Wow.
Okay.
Did not know that one.
I even had a 45 RPM player in one of my cars back in the 60s.
I can't. Well, I've seen that. I saw an ad. It's been many years ago, but I saw an ad, and I think that's how RCA kind of came to fame back in the day, because that was their, or I'm sorry, Motorola, because it came out of Motorola. You're rolling your car, rolling tunes. I think is how they tried to sell it.
Well, true.
I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, and it's fascinating what they've done. I remember us there at WCPA. More so on the FM side, WQYX, where they switched from those, and I still remember it to this day. And again, I guess Bob, you're gonna just really have to trust me on this. I found pictures. It's not from the studio, but I found the old rack mount automations.
With the reel-to-reel.
Not reel to reel, but you remember the carousel cart machines that we had?
Okay. Our original automation was reel-to-reel.
Oh, really? Okay.
And they had a reel-to-reel automation with the carousels for the carts. And the thing is, you had to go in every so often and change the reel-to-reel because they'd run out.
Right.
And the guy that was in AM, he was in charge of changing the reels on the FM.
I remember being in the AM room, and the reel-to-reel was in that room adjacent to it, and there was a reel set up, I guess for emergency purposes or something, with music on it.
Well, that might have been for emergency, but I remember that was that's how we got our On the Road with Jeff Brooks, was off of that reel-to-reel.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't ever remember using it very often.
I used it quite a bit on Saturdays.
Oh, okay. I remember going into and having to change the satellite station, you know, during a break at the top of the hour when we're going to, you know,
and it was always a 60-second spot or break or something. So we knew we could literally run between, I think, 3 sets of doors, change the crystal out of the sat room to run back through those 3 doors, run around the console, which was that U-shaped, C-shaped rather.
And have the right network on the air, yes.
Yes. But I was saying about how you're transitioning for technology. We had those 2 racks, at least in my era. I remember having to change out the carts for the different DJs that played, and one of them, Johnny Wolf now is what he goes by, that used to be on that the ABC network, which is now I think Westwood One, or I don't know who owns them anymore.
Yeah.
But I remember changing
Jonathan Wolf.
Yeah, it was Jonathan Wolf up until about I think 10 years ago. He decided to change it to Johnny Wolf. Yeah, he's the only name I remember from that satellite service. But
you'd have to keep an eye on the clock so that you knew which hour somebody was going to change, and then you had to change the whole set of liners to match the new DJ. Yep.
Right, and then there was the main. I'll call it the main computer sat in the FM studio, which wasn't much. It was just the monitor and I don't think it was a full keyboard like we would know it. It was like a specialized keyboard that might have had maybe 12, 20 buttons on it to go forward, backwards, to set the schedule, play, stop, whatever. And then in the AM side, we actually had to watch it and keep tune with it, time rather, to make sure it was kind of still in cue or in check, because we still had to accurately place spots when their tones came down for it.
it's amazing how it all worked. You know what I mean? But
even for that older technology, and then when we've got that Digilink, the Arrakis 3 Digilink, or Digilink 3,
right.
whatever it was.
One in AM, one in FM, and one in the production room.
Right. And I was just in awe and how much was sat on that box. Yet everything that was in the library, in our spots, our promos, our liners and jingles, fit all in that one little hard drive, and we thought that was overwhelming. At that, in 1993, 94.
Yep.
And now we are looking at 2 terabyte, 3 terabyte, whatever,
in your phone. You've got more memory in your phone than all 3 of those computers had combined.
That's right.
I got kind of the raw end of the deal because I ended up going to college and getting a radio broadcasting degree, and it was right at the time that the digital really influxed. But our professors, we were still splicing reel to reel. They wanted us to learn.
Right.
So I got like an education backwards in reel to reel and still using carts and such, and then also learning the digital software. So it was a unique experience, like in the late 90s there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, some radio stations still had that equipment. That's the way you went.
Right. Not everybody had switched over yet.
That's amazing. Hey, guys, great talking to you.
This is awesome. I'm sure you have better things to do than reminisce about WCPA, but I want to thank you for being a part of this. And like I said, we're still going to have, there's actually a part B to this. Again, you'll have to trust me and maybe borrow someone's computer and do a YouTube for us. The reason being, I have good memory when it comes to buildings and layouts and stuff. And I was able to conjure up, Jason doesn't know this till now, I have a floor plan of WCPA, WQYX. Most everything I remember almost in its exact spot, short of...
Well, I'm glad you have it because that is now a parking lot.
Very true. I don't have the front office desks very well, and I don't have the program director of the sales rooms very well, but I was able to get, I know the booths pretty well. I remember there was a storage room, which I didn't even know existed up until like the last month I was there, where the chicken suit resided rather.
Oh, you scared.
That's right. They had the San Diego chicken as the mascot.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. But what I have going on, pictures on the wall, I was able to figure this program out. So I have I'll call it a reproduction, a picture I found on the internet of the old Ampro board that we used for the AM.
Yes.
I have a picture of the room. I still have a picture of the rack where the remote control to the transmitters sat.
And today where most boards have slide volume controls, they're pots. Right. But that one had the knobs.
Right, and so did the FM in the production rooms also.
Yep.
And I still have those original photos, short of the AM console. I don't know why I never took a picture, or maybe my film didn't develop that. But I have a picture of the production room, the FM studio with CJ at the board. I have a newspaper clipping from a while ago when Carl Sr. was still around. It was you and Carl posing for, I think it was a Rotary Club or something. I can't remember. It was in the progress, but it's in his office, I'll call it, that I've rebuilt. I have the picture of the newsroom, the carts and the Digilink monitor, and one of the 2 record players there on the AM console.
And those were the great big turntables that they would hold a 16-inch record.
Yeah, they were big monsters.
I remember that it was always queued up to like Kenny G or something in case
technical difficulties.
Yeah, technical difficulties. And then there was that cart that said, "We're experiencing technical difficulties. You stand by."
Yes. I think he's looking for that soundbite now, but
we are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Can you hear this, Bob? I don't know if you really can hear this.
Well, play it. I'll try.
Crank it up a little bit. You can.
No, doesn't come through on this end, but I'm sure the folks are hearing it there. So
pretty crazy.
That is super. Ever so nice to talk to you. Thanks for remembering me.
Well,
Yeah,
anytime.
your first jobs for classic, guys.
Right, and kind of as my again virtual mural, I have you. I found a picture of you. I think it is actually from Facebook, but it's you turned around in the WOKW. I think you were wearing a red shirt. I can't remember, but it's
that's the picture they use on our website, WOKW.com, for my Sunday Super Gold show. Yeah.
Yeah, and I put that right in the AM room proudly because that was your booth as far as I'm concerned. That was you.
Okay,
You were Mr. WCPA, and for me, you were the local celebrity. When I got to meet you, I was like, oh, I actually get to make Mr. Clearfield himself.
You're too kind, guys. I do appreciate
Well,
it.
I just want to say thank you too, because between you and between Carl, that's what kind of pushed me into broadcasting. And if you do remember, I did come back for like an internship for a while. I think it was during the summer between my junior and senior year in college, and just kind of learned the ropes, learned the production room, news, how to,
Yep, we had to do it all.
Stuff. Yeah, and fortunately or unfortunately, my plan was to come back home and possibly get a job there. But I met this girl, and I decided to stay in the South. And turns out, like you said, the radio station's now a parking lot.
Love wins out, huh?
So yes, it did. But thank you for that.
Okay.
You were a real inspiration, I think, to both of us.
Yeah, you were.
We did.
Okay, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Bob.
Yep.
You take care of yourself.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And it was a great. I hadn't talked to him in years. I had seen him a couple times because our family will go home once a year to visit my parents and friends and extended family when we get the chance. And Bob essentially just walked to work. He would walk around town.
Oh yeah.
Walk down to the station, so I would see him all the time on the street and beep, say hello. And I think there was one point where I did catch up with him or meet him, see him walking and say hello. And he's still, my dad will run into him once in a while too, and he remembers me working there. But that was great that we got to, you set that up, and got to talk with him. I hadn't talked with him in a long time, and a lot of what pushed me into doing radio broadcasting and making that my college major had to do with Bob and Carl too. Yeah. Carl, even though he was essentially the dictator there, he could recognize people's talents. I think he knew that you were the technical geek.
Yeah, and I was more the technical.
You eventually earned his trust a little more, I think.
Yeah, to some degree. There was a couple fouls. Bob actually might remember this. I didn't bring it up, but there was one night where the engineer came in and decided to clean the carts. And while we're here, again, this is a similar. We usually had the gray one, so it's gray with like I'll call it a smoked, very light smoke. It was almost clear top. So here comes the engineer coming to clean out the machines, and it's just rubbing alcohol. But I know rubbing alcohol grabs the tapes. It grabs that magnetic tape like crazy. So here we are. We're in the middle of a Bison football game. And it's being broadcast over, I think it was actually over the cell phone. It might have been the Marty.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it ate the one promo tape that we had, and it was a compilation. So they basically squeezed like 3 sponsors into a 30-second. Or they might have squeezed 2 sponsors into the 15-second, whatever.
Yeah,
and like, Bob would come back.
A billboard. Yeah.
Right, and we were talking about the cue speaker. So underneath the desk, we'd hear Bob. Once we hit the commercial, we'd hear Bob say, "Okay, throw me a 30, throw me a 60." However, he thought the game was going. Well, here's Mr. Engineer. I still don't remember his name. He's sitting there cleaning.
I can remember his face.
Ate the tape. And I'm like, okay.
What am I gonna do now?
And I couldn't. For some reason, I couldn't. Well, the only other we had 2. That's what it was. We only had 2 of those tapes. That's why I couldn't play it again, because it was already playing that first one. Couldn't go to the other one, and he was already starting to work on that second one. So I had to throw the technical difficulties guy up, which I've already played. I think.
Experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
You get that in the middle of the game, and they call up wondering what in the world is going on.
Right, and it still plays, and it plays on. It plays on. And Bob is going, okay, Mr. Bloom. Okay, what's going on? But let's go back to the game. The engineer is sitting there on the saying, "I know, Bob. Just wait. I screwed up." And
yeah, he did get you off the hook for that.
He did. And then Bob finally called on the cell phone, the old bag phone, you know, they're like this big. And he calls me up and says, "Hey, what's going on?" And grabbed the phone from my hand. Told Bob that's my fault. They needed maintenance. I don't know why I picked the night of all nights, but it ate the tape. It should be salvageable. Just let it spin a while. It should be fine. Sure enough, it cleaned up. We were fine the rest of the night. But that one moment, we were off air essentially for like 5 minutes. I don't know how long it was. But then I got the phone back, and he said, "Okay, that's why we have this." Made the announcements.
Yeah.
And
see, that was the thing, too. We were brought in as board ops in.
Even though that contract said announcer, we were legally allowed to go on the air. There was like a sub policy that said, unless you're full time, you don't. If there's a tornado outside, you don't open that mic.
Right. And
so we weren't qualified according to the higher powers.
Thanks to Carl and
showing favor to Jason.
Yeah, he did show me some favor in that. He's like, "Well, you got a pretty good voice, and I think you could." Start doing some announcements, start doing some short little news updates, even the weather. And I started doing that because my shift went from, okay, we need you, Saturday for Penn State, we need you Sunday, we need you, this overnight shift or whatever. And I had a regular shift from, it was probably like 12 to 6 or 7, maybe.
I think it's 12 to 6:30 because it's right after Johnny Holiday.
That's right. So 6:30. So I would come in and essentially watch them do the news, the new news, and then after that we had the Gene Burns show and then Rush Limbaugh, and I had to somewhat dress up because it was still business hours, and customers, people would come in and stuff. So he wanted me to kind of dress up a little bit. So I had to dress up a little bit. And then he got to the point where, all right, so try doing, the news at, I think it was after the later news at maybe 5, because I ran the board for Bob. Bob sat in the guest or the second spot or stood off to the side where the other mic was to do the 5 o'clock news.
Okay.
And I ran the board for that. And then there was another news update somewhere before I left. And I walked in, and Deidre walked in one day. She was coming in after me, and I did the little news break, minute news or whatever.
So shocked that you were
She's like, "Wait, you're on the air? You can open up the mic?" And he's like, "Yeah, they're letting me." And that's how I got kind of pushed into it. And even at one point during it was before we went to the Penn State game. So I would come in Saturday morning. I can't remember what program was on or something. And then we would go to, usually, 1 o'clock start was Penn State. But there was a new news they did on the weekend, I think maybe through ABC, that was extended. But there was about 35 minutes or 40 minutes of whatever. They didn't know what to plug in before the Penn State game came on. We didn't do any really too much pre-show. So they gave me 40 minutes to play music. And I didn't necessarily, I was essentially the DJ, but I never opened up the mic just to say that was Steely Dan. That was,
Kenny G, Tom Petty. Yeah.
It was all oldies. They were the oldies station at that time. It was oldies, 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. But I got to play 40 minutes of music it was on the turntables.
Yep.
And I had a few breaks. So I remember doing news. I remember doing weather. And, there's always a couple commercials in there to play. And eventually that went away. I can't remember what. We went into a satellite show for 40 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Because I guess Carl didn't. Not saying that I was bad going back and forth between music, but he wanted something more there.
Yeah.
So they gave me a little more leeway with
Opening the mic,
what I was able to do there, and it was great. You know, it was really great memories. And as we we talking with Bob, a lot of them kind of flooded back. I think some for him too.
Right.
And it was I believe we talked about it in the interview where the station is no longer there. It was bought out. The whole building was leveled for more parking right there next to the Progress, and it's all the QYX is still there, WCPA is still there, but it's run.
Well, it's actually now bought out completely. There was one group called First Media bought both entities at that time. I think this is around 05, 06 in that time frame. And then just recently, I just learned that they were separated. So now it's still even a different company. So one owns QYX, another owns WCPA. So it's a completely different
and it's mainly
sadly it's just been gone.
Yeah, and there's no local. I don't believe there's any local DJs there running that. I think it's all satellite or something.
I don't know anymore. They were trying to bring back was kind of the comedy of it, right? So we were a local radio station at WCPA, WQYX, and the only competition we really had was WOKW. But the live was just news and stuff, and if we could hire a DJ, then we'd have someone live. But most of the time, it was satellite. So there was, to me, that was kind of the comedy of it is, yeah, we might be able to be a local radio station. We're still satellite, and then Johnny Wolf, and which he's still around, by the way. I just found him on TuneIn.
Oh yeah,
so he's around. But anyway,
I'm Jonathan Wolf.
That's how we knew him as Jonathan Wolf. About 10, 15 years ago, he changed his name, I guess, to freshen up the image. So, but yeah, so then you had WOKW, which did have a local DJ for a little bit, but they were a competition. And then when First Media bought them out, they were trying to sell themselves as we actually have DJs in studio. Yeah. But you're also a corporation that owns. So you kind of did this. You still did it.
It's a fine line, I guess you'll say. But glad that WOKW, Bob got to go over there and is still.
He's been there for almost a decade now.
Okay.
And he still does the Bison, any type of Bison football, baseball, basketball. He still covers that with Carl Jr.
Actually, Mark. Mark is his name.
Is it Mark? I'm sorry. My apologies. But yeah, Mark.
Mark Falvo. Yeah, he's the color man. Bob is the play-by-play. And they've been covering Bison football for a long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's cool that he's still got essentially, I think, about the same gig. Because I still hear him when we are home doing commercials. Well, more of that stuff. I don't know. I think he does some news and news updates, and then he's got his Sunday morning show. I think he said Solid Gold is what he calls it. It's about 3 hours of what we would call, I guess, oldies, but 50s, 60s, 70s music, and he's essentially doing his thing that he does when he's not at the station, DJing at parties and weddings and all that stuff. And that's, I think, him at his best. I love hear him spin records, and like I said in the interview, he's just a walking music encyclopedia. A lot of the stuff I learned coming into broadcasting and stuff, I pulled from him and his experience up until that point, and now he's still got 25 years beyond that. Right. Beyond that, from when we were there. So that was really fun, and it's a really great job memory.
It is
that we have shared and working there at that station. I appreciate you putting the time and effort into.
That was fun.
Doing the whole 3D model, and I knew you had all the liners, and I've used them for ringtones, but he managed to rig all that up here through his mixer, and I mean, this has been fun.
Yeah.
This has been great.
Before we sign out,
okay,
can you think of one or two fun moments that we did at the radio station that we did, but we were probably going to get hung up or strung up by either Carl or Bob, but we got away with it. Now we can kind of talk about it. Bob can now laugh about it.
Now, the overnight, I remember honing my skills of Minesweeper. Remember that game?
Yes.
Out in the front office was all the salespeople, and then what's her name, the receptionist there.
Swatsworth something.
Yeah, so they had the computers of the day.
Carrie Swatsworth.
Out there, and we go out there and fire those up and play games out there, because the one the Digilink in there, I don't think had any games or anything.
No.
So we would cut on. There's a speaker out there. I would cut on. Oh, and the fax machine.
Yeah, that's where all the news came out too.
We would get news reports by fax.
Yep.
From the state police, county police.
Basically, all the police stations would come out.
And it would sometimes just be a little handwritten thing. Accident here, fire here.
Right.
I remember that. It all came through the fax machine.
Yep,
So
yep.
I had to translate the information that they sent into a news story. That was part of my internship as well. But yeah, I'd go out there, turn on the computer, and play that Minesweeper, where you click on there's all those gray boxes, and you could make it whatever size you wanted to make it too, and how many bombs in there.
Yep.
And you click on it, and you see what square is touching, and how many bombs is next to that one, and played a lot of that. So yeah, I would turn on the speaker out there.
Yep.
I think you might have showed me this trick.
I probably did, because I was out there playing there was a fighter game back before really the big video games 3.1, Windows 3.1. So I'd get out there, and I know I got caught. I had to have gotten caught, because I was so close of a call, because I'd see a light come up, and it's usually Bob, and you couldn't miss when he did drive up. He drove up in a Ford Taurus or something wagon, and I'm like, oh crap. And you just hit off. You didn't shut down like you do. You just hit off the power button, turn off the radio, run back in, and I would casually walk into the window.
Oh yeah.
Because there's the window. You could see it. So I just make it look like I was just kind of pacing back and forth. And it wasn't too long after that. There's a big nice notice on our bulletin board that said no one can use the front office computer. Got me.
I don't remember them catching us, but I don't remember doing too many overnights, but I do remember going out and doing that.
I remember
what else?
Two key points. There's probably thousands more in my head, but one we kind of honed another skill. That was called rapping with a CD player. And we had a lot of time on our hands sometimes, both of us, and we would sit there sometimes. He'd be just coming off a shift. I'd start calling on, and be like an hour or two before he went home, and we'd grab Aerosmith was typically the one we'd do it.
That was my fault.
One of them was, it's amazing. We'd hit the little tap on and try to pseudo rap our Aerosmith. That was one gig that we
CD
did.
turntable, yeah.
And you actually made me one. I just started up in the Air Force, and you made me a mixtape, and one of those was on there. I can't find it now, but you did make me that cut.
The rapping.
The rapping. It was hilarious.
Because those CD players were better than our own, because it had the little fast forward and rewinds that you could just kind of go through the song versus just skipping,
Right.
And those were the industrial models at the time, I guess. So you could do a lot more, and that's, I guess, kind of how we got into messing with those.
Yeah. The second one was I would push the threshold with food. And I started getting the hankering for salt and vinegar chips. Of all places, we're not allowed to have food in there, and I would bring in the stinky stuff. And I was forgetful. So I'd ask Jason often, because I'd forget. I'd stuff it, and, during the night, during my shift, I'd stuff on the side of the console in a little tiny, I'll call it a little pocket. But then I'd forget that I had it there, and I'd walk out that night. Oh, dude, Jason, I call him up. Jason, can you move my chips to the bottom of the one in the newsroom? There's a shelf there, in behind like the records or whatever was back there. Yeah, I'll do it. I don't know. I called them often about that. So to cover my tracks, I got wise to the clean lady stuff was also in the kitchen. So I grabbed the bottle of Pledge. Probably went through a lot of Pledge with me, and I would just mace the place with Pledge all over to try to mask the salt and vinegar chips. I just let it. It'd be the slow mo. It was like, and I'd walk the room, trying to make sure I got it all soaked into the carpet, to try to mask that.
Well, one other thing I do remember too is we found. I don't know if we found them or if we somehow stumbled onto the keys to that storage room.
Yeah, we found it, which it was locked.
Yeah, and I remember like right before I started working at the station, they ran a contest in the mall at one of the I can't remember which store it was. It was a clothing store.
It was a sports. It was a sports one.
Anyway,
like a kind of a Sports Authority, but
you pop in your name, address, and phone number to win a T-shirt, and they chose me, and I won a T-shirt. And he was so jealous because he worked at the station and never even got a T-shirt. And T-shirts are still the coveted item. You want a free T-shirt. And I think did you eventually get one, or
you got me one.
I got you one
while you were interning.
I think Bob gave me a couple or something, and I've ended up giving one to you somehow. But I remember going back in the storage room, and they had like CD singles from whatever random band that they just never played, never used. They put them in prize packs or something. So I remember swiping a few of those.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything major. I don't ever remember taking T-shirts or anything. They did have the letterhead back there.
I've swiped a couple of those. I still have them in my memory.
And there were like
some
stickers or something too that
Probably.
had that logo that you were showing that was on the contract.
Yeah.
So yeah, we made our way into there, and the chicken. I remember the chicken being in the satellite room because I think they moved it so.
When they were prepping for an event, they'd move it out there to remind you. I remember coming in that room one day, and I came in for. I think I came in to change I think I came in to change the chip, the crystal for the satellite source. Came in there. I think that's why I had 10 seconds left because I scared the crap. Walked in that room, and there it is, right up against that rack. I'm like, "Dude! Oh, it's a chicken soup." But it just you don't expect it because that's also where our time cards, our time clocks, everything was at.
That's right.
Our paychecks were all there. So it was just you walked in, and you just didn't expect it. Say, what the?
It's like Five Nights at Freddy's.
7 with it. But yeah, it was. We had a blast.
Yeah.
Like I said, we could go on and on, but it was just a fun.
I do remember doing being with Bob at one remote at the fair.
Like we were interning, yeah.
And I do remember. I was never the mascot, but for some reason I have a memory of maybe riding along
with one of the girls being the mascot.
The Q Cruiser. While I think it was Jennifer. I can't remember her last name. She was the chicken for a couple of times while they're in the parade, because I have this memory of being in the parade. I think it was the Halloween parade, and we were actually playing the satellite feed, and they started playing some like Halloween songs like Thriller and stuff. And I was like, oh man, this was working out perfectly.
Right.
There was no DJ at the
board.
Yeah, we weren't doing a remote. It was just basically blaring the radio station and the chicken being there. So, but I have that memory. So yeah. I've got a few other ones outside of the station, and working there and doing some fun things like that and learning how Bob did the remotes. And yeah. I do remember being in the FM a couple times for remotes. I think maybe with CJ.
Yeah.
Doing live broadcast for a couple of hours, and I had to man the FM board, bring it off the satellite, and go back to the satellite when we were done with the remotes.
That was one thing I didn't do too much of. For all the experience I had there, especially the mechanics, the technical side of it, I knew how to bring it online, but I never sat there in that booth. And I know that's where Deidre, she did a lot of the FM stuff. And I'm scrolling through my list here so that some of my our fans can listen. We had this one.
It's the weekly top 40 countdown, all the way to number 1 on QYX 93.5, Clearfield County's biggest hits.
The weekly top 40.
Rick D's and the hits.
Yeah, she would come in and run him on, I think it was Saturday. Was it Saturday mornings?
Yeah, it was Saturday mornings, and it was one or the other. I can't believe I don't have it here. There was another one that was on there during the weekend. I didn't.
Top 40 or
Casey Kasem.
Oh, okay.
Casey Kasem.
Yeah, we did
do down on him.
Did we do both? We were doing both, weren't we?
We were doing both. There was basically their own competition. I don't have it there, but I do have the liner. But it was back to back. So she'd do one or the other first, and the opposite second.
Yeah.
She sat there.
Or maybe it was one in the morning, one at night, or afternoon, or
maybe
I mean,
afternoon.
it wasn't back to back.
But
yeah.
it was the show was on CD, so she would literally just sit there and read or whatever. And I coined the phrase, "We got the radio ear." So I would drone out of stuff, and then you'd hear that cue, perk up, hit the cue, and go. So she would basically do that. She had the CD show on, and it would, you know, cut one was the intro, the first 10 minutes, whatever, and then she'd pot it down, like we call it, hit the commercials, liner, play, pot it back up, and here's Rick D. We're back, and that was the show. So it was like I said, it was a fun to work there. One of our most coveted memories, I think, working at WQYX, WCPA. I know we have more antics there.
Yeah, and I did have a couple summer jobs after QYX when I was in college. I came back and I worked for Appalachian Wood on the overnight shift, and that was basically they made kitchen cabinet doors, and I did a couple different jobs there. It kind of sucked. Not, you know, it was nothing against manufacturing work and everything, and I'm kind of in that business now, just with you know, printing presses. But and then the worst job I ever had was one summer I worked for the Walmart distribution center up on the hill.
Out of Woodland, yeah.
And I worked on the shipping docks, so that whole place had something like 11 miles worth of conveyor belts, and there was, I think, 30 shipping doors on that back line, and you had the conveyors that would come down and extend right into the tractor trailer, and you would essentially just be stacking boxes all day, and there would be some non-conveyable stuff that would come on, like bikes and beanbag chairs and entertainment centers, that they'd stop your line to throw that stuff on the end, and you had to kind of deal with that, you know, as you went, and your stuff would get backed up, and those trailers were hot. You know, this is during the summer. Once in a while, you get a trailer with a roof that was see-through, you know, a solar roof, which made the thing even hotter, and it was hell. It was physical labor.
And my dad was the guy driving those trucks out.
He would drive the trailers out. But yeah, I like stopping at, you know, at QYX. Those were the good, what we talked about now was the good jobs. So
I think that rounds it up for us.
Yeah, that was fun. Hope you guys enjoyed the interview too with Bob, and be fun if we can find some more people like that from our childhood, or
I'm trying to find,
whatever. You know, we'll have to think of some other guests we can have on to kind of jog our own memories.
Right, but yeah, this was great. We're gonna be. What is our next memory jogger?
I don't know. We need to like kind of pull up the list, because I'm kind of at a loss for what some of the other topics we were considering at the time.
Well, I know you wanted to get into something.
Have you pull it up? There was some. Well, we went through our VHS library. I was thinking maybe we'll be going to do our cassettes and
the mixed cassette. That was one of them that we were going to do.
So we had thought about doing something like that.
There was one. There was
what that noise is. I think
there was one about theme parks.
Theme parks and kind of field trips. There we go. So yeah, we did like our end of the year trips at school. Some of the places we visited, and the amusement parks, Hershey, Kennywood. That might be fun to get into. Oh, there's a good one. Maybe if we ever get winter down there where I'm from, we can do some winter memories, sled riding and all that stuff. It's almost getting to be Halloween. We can invite people to go back and listen to our Halloween episode.
Or we could add to it. I'm sure we can think of things for Halloween.
I think we covered it pretty good.
Yeah.
Now that'd be a fun one. Get into the old video game systems we had. Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to think of stuff we might still be hanging on to that we could go through. Yeah, there's some stuff. We did do a Christmas one, but it wasn't
all inclusive. It was the top 3 gifts.
Yeah, it was the gifts. It was the gifts that we received. So there's some other stuff we could do. We could maybe throw in. Well, if we do cassettes or something like that, we can talk about some of the ones we had in the car when we were traveling up the beefs and stuff. We went through Cheech and Chong and
Bob Rivers, I think is what it is.
Yeah, there's some ways we could take those.
Well, it is your turn officially, so whatever you're thinking.
Let's since we did the fair, let's go ahead and do the theme parks and field trips and stuff and see what we can remember.
Sounds like a plan.
Going all the way back to like elementary school.
Yeah.
I have a sticker. Do you remember Coons Farms?
Yeah.
I have a sticker in that sticker book from Coons Farms. Wow. And there was like an apple farm. Anyway, so I can remember a few ones from like elementary years, but a lot of the end of the year ones were good. And again, this is going to be regional to where we are in Central PA. We did make it to Pittsburgh. We made it out to
Hershey,
Cedar Point in Ohio. That was
I didn't get to that one.
You didn't do that one? That was senior year. We went all the way out to Ohio. I can't remember where Cedar Point is in Ohio, but
Gettysburg. We went
Gettysburg, Hershey.
We had our senior weekend, whatever it was, senior trip weekend up in New York somewhere.
Yeah, I do remember some specific things about that.
Leave that one be.
That's what we're doing. We're going to do our field trips and stuff from school.
So I think that about does it. I'm not going to do my little typical wrap I do at the end, except that I want to say, please follow us, give us a like or a rating on iTunes,
Google, whatever app you're using to listen to us.
And that's not right. We're not trying to get the rating. We're trying to get the actual interest out of it.
The more your show is rated, the more it shows up in like searching and stuff like that.
It just shows us who's listening.
Yeah, you can give us 1 star, or 3 stars, 5 stars, whatever you want to give us, and the rating, just rating the show helps us to go out. But we hope you give you 5 stars.
Yeah, include your comments and questions. Yeah. Give us ideas about shows because we may not have covered it. So please, you're more than welcome.
Always tweet. You can always tweet us at RD80s and all the other Rediscover the 80s social media places that you'll see. Where we actually syndicate the show, or just comment on the website.
Right.
You can always do that as well.
Right. So we're going to exit with a few of our clips, I'll call it, from WCPA. Enjoy.
Hey, Old Man Winter here. Take the USOC book, take it and rip it up and throw it out the window.
Play by the rules and play to win.
We love to hear Rush Limbaugh.
Hello, Americans. To your help.
This is Big Band Jump on 900 CPA. Nice to know you're out there.
Hi, I'm Ron Barnes.
Want to talk Clearfield?
Hi, this is John Brennan from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation.
NFL football is coming up on News Talk Sports 900 CPA.
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Steelers 94.
WCPA.
See ya.
Take care.